The following episode contains graphic content dealing with sexual assault, attempted murder, and the aftermath. May be disturbing to some listeners. Also, some names have been changed to protect identities. Thanks for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast.
As much as we've enjoyed telling this story that's cost the better part of my 40s.
And my 30s.
We wanted to go into some of the details and things that didn't make it into the final cut of the actual memoir. Just some production notes and answer some questions that we received along the way and just talk through some of the creative decisions that we've made.
And now, the story of phone calls, interviews, case files, and Josh and Amanda spilling it all. I'm Amanda Fallon, and this is the Surely You Can't Be Serious behind the scenes. The story's huge, so there's a ton that didn't make it into these episodes.
We're going to talk through some of the challenges that we had trying to cram 40 years of case files and testimonies and anecdotal information and putting it into 7 one-hour episodes.
Should I just talk about the relief I feel right now?
Yeah.
That it's over?
Yeah.
Well, it's not even over. I feel like this is just the beginning. There's still so much to tell.
Did you feel like we honored her correctly in doing this? Do you feel that the story is complete?
I feel like her story is complete. I set out to tell Shirley's story, originally to help her finish her memoir, and then it just kept evolving. Yeah. And then with her passing, I didn't know how I was going to finish this story without her. Prior to 2023, it was about Mount Lemmon. It was about Joan Archer, all these different elements within her story. But it was her memoir, but she still had a lot of fear. So as much as I would have loved to have seen her in the room with Stephen Skaggs and for him to tell her, hey, I'm glad you got remarried. I'm glad you've had a good life.
Yeah. I
wasn't mad at you. And to see the relief, I don't think some of the aspects of this story would have happened.
Yeah.
Or would have been told.
I don't think Eddie would have told us all the stuff he told us. If she
I don't
was
think
still
so
alive.
Either.
In the upcoming episodes, we are also going to talk about some of the devices that we used for the storytelling and some of the ways that we were able to overcome the family dynamics, the complexity of the cold case. And I think you were liberated from the perception that Shirley brought to the story. You were able to discover and touch on some things that might have made her feel uncomfortable. But on the same token, it's so unfortunate that we also uncovered so many things where people thought the world of her. You would have loved to have her be there with Skaggs, and that could have probably had an effect on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? He could have probably demonstrated a different side or even some emotion. I don't think it's good or bad. If Shirley was still alive and you did this project, we would have still had something that we were really proud of, and the outcome may have been different and the stories may have been different. And who knows, we may have been the ones that brokered that healing between her and Eddie. We don't know.
I hate that she's not seeing this completed.
Yeah. And so I think that responsibility weighed. Like, I didn't even meet Shirley, but I feel like I know her. And it weighed a lot on me. I figured the best way to show her reverence and respect was to be genuine. And the one clue that we had that was her biggest wish is the fact that she was married to your dad. And that's who your dad is. He's painfully genuine. We're sitting here 6 months later after this blitz. And I'm so proud of it. And I'm so happy to share it with everybody. And it's been one of those projects that, I've had all these projects in my life that I don't share with everybody. The response has been just through the roof.
Yeah, it's kind of scary doing, this is my first passion project, my first creative project. And there's always that fear. Are people going to like it?
Yeah.
So that's been really rewarding for me. Not only did I accomplish it, not only did I fulfill that promise to Shirley, but people do like it.
We're also going to talk about some of the production elements, some of the sound design, some of the music, and just some of the funny moments that happened that were happy accidents.
Oh, and all the synchronicities.
Yeah. all the things that fell into place,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that were perfect timing, all the scary moments, all the happy moments, all the oh, looks like we're just gonna send it moments. And
It's or the me calling you at 1 a.m. saying it has to be now.
yeah. I think that was the other thing that for me was really special is meeting you and immediately hitting the ground running, and the fact that you brought all of these things that you had compiled, and somehow I was able to leverage every skill that I've acquired in the last 20 years of my career to put this thing together. The music industry background, the design background, we didn't outsource a single thing aside from consulting here and there and mastering the audio files, which a big thank you to Brian Sansom,
Yeah,
SLC
thanks,
Audio,
Brian.
and a big
And our extreme deadlines.
yeah, we rode him pretty hard, and there was some really
What'd we give him? 2-day turnarounds?
yeah, we gave him some really tight deadlines, and there's some really strange world-changing events at Utah Valley University happening right in the middle of our project. But also just friends and people that I've worked with over the years, and reaching out. Wes coming in to help us out at the beginning. That's pretty big.
Yeah, the universe knew what it was doing when it brought you to me.
So
Did you ever think that for when you asked me out for coffee, that by date number 3, you'd be committed to a full-blown Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast?
it's surreal.
It's magic. I don't think these stories happen without magic.
Yeah, it's probably 2,000 hours of work.
Well, what did I tell you? I was like, just think of it this way. I spent the last 6 years on it. The next 6 months. It's like the same thing.
Of 6 years
Your 6
in
months
6 months
was the equivalent of my 6 years.
So as you're listening to these, we've really enjoyed hearing everyone's comments and questions and things. Be sure to keep them coming and visit us on deadseriousmedia.com, and we will be pushing out more content.
Okay, so Mount Lemmon's huge.
Yeah.
This case is huge.
What's this document you have in front of you?
This is the Mitigation Aggravation Hearing, Volume 2.
All right. And who's in this document?
So this is the 2 victims
And
basically on the stand. Skaggs is in the courtroom. There's people in the courtroom. There's a judge. And the victims are telling their story.
okay.
So we all know Sharon. Sharon was victim 2. She was the one that was handcuffed to the tree. Let's call victim 1 Michelle.
Perfect.
Okay.
So it's great to have this document here because let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual details of the incident.
Yeah. Do you want to read the lawyer?
Yeah. Will you tell the judge just briefly what you were doing that day?
Michelle says, we went up to Mount Lemmon for a picnic.
When you say we,
Me and Sharon.
do you remember what day of the week it was?
A Tuesday.
When you went up there for a picnic, was it just the 2 of you? And at that time in your life, had you gone on picnics, particularly to Mount Lemmon or maybe to Rose Canyon, Bear Wallow?
Yes, we used to go with my parents.
When you say used to, does that mean you don't go there anymore?
No.
When was the first time that you noticed anything unusual on July 22nd?
I saw that guy go by one time. And the second time we were throwing the trash in the car. And he asked if we'd seen anyone. And we hadn't. And we just went walking up the trail. Where Michelle and Sharon went to go have a picnic was in a Bear Wallow campground. And it was located off the Mount Lemmon Highway, about a quarter mile down on a dirt road. And there was no parking lot. So they had parked their car off, like on a dirt shoulder.
Uh-huh.
So when she says that she saw him drive by, there's only one way in and out of this campground. So he would have turned around and drove back out the same way. So I think it's interesting that he drove by, didn't say anything to him. And then when he drove back by and saw them putting their trash in the car, that's when he asks them.
So you put the trash in your car, and what did you do after that?
Started to walk back up the hill and stopped by a log. We were taking pictures and noticed him behind us.
The first time you saw him, did you have any conversations with him?
When we were at the car putting trash in there, he asked us if we'd seen anybody.
Had you?
No.
What did you tell him?
No, we hadn't.
Did anything else happen at that time?
When we were down at the car?
Any other conversations with him?
Not that I recall.
Then you go up the hill, and the next time you see him is...
He's standing behind Sharon when she's taking a picture.
And then what happened?
I kind of ignored him. I didn't know what he was doing up there. And I started to walk. And when I turned, he had a hold of Sharon.
And when you say he had a hold of, how did he have a hold of Sharon? Left arm around her neck, a gun to her head. Do you remember if he said anything at that time?
I think he said something to the effect that, do what we're told and we won't get hurt.
Did you find that was true that afternoon?
So essentially, Michelle and Sharon went up to Bear Wallow to have a picnic.
Yeah.
And that's when Skaggs approaches them and asks if they had seen anybody.
And so hiking tip number 1, if you're out with your girlfriend and a guy comes over and asks if you've seen anyone,
you say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You probably don't answer, no, nobody out here but us vulnerable girls.
So Sharon gives a more detailed account, which I think is interesting. She describes,
my age is 39. I was born in Moline, Illinois.
What was the last grade you completed in school, and where was that at?
High school, and it was in Linden, Illinois.
Okay. And so you read, write, and understand English?
Yeah.
Have you had any trouble understanding me?
No.
Okay. If you do, please tell me.
Okay.
All right. Sharon, a little while ago, I drove up to Mount Lemmon and picked you up and brought you down here to the hospital. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. What I'd like to do is to talk to you about the events that led to you being up on Mount Lemmon and what occurred there.
Okay. I was with,
And who is?
she's the one of my best friends.
Okay. And how old is she?
29.
How long have you known her?
Oh, probably 5 to 8 years. Well, we just went up to Mount Lemmon to have a picnic and just enjoy the day.
Okay. All right. And about what time did you leave your house to go up there?
About 12:45.
All right. And whose vehicle were you in? And what kind of car does she have?
Drives a Mazda RX-7.
Okay. What color is her car?
Blue?
All right. So you went up to Mount Lemmon, and did you make any stops on the way?
We stopped to get a sandwich at Bear Canyon Deli.
Okay. And you went on up to Mount Lemmon.
Right.
And where did you finally stop?
We stopped at Bear Wallow Campground.
Okay. And are you familiar with that area up there?
Yeah, I've been up there before.
Okay.
But, I haven't been all the way up there
All right.
like we were today.
Okay. Can you describe the area just a little bit there? But were you parked in that?
It's just it's like a turnaround, and it was real green and real nice, and it just steps that go up into a pathway that goes back into the mountain there.
Okay. And when you got up there, did you park?
Yeah.
All right. And did you park in the turnaround area there?
Yeah.
Was there anyone there when you got there?
No.
Okay. So no one else was around?
No.
Okay. And then what did you do after you parked?
Took our sandwiches and sat on the hill and ate our sandwiches.
Okay. What time do you think it was about when you got up there and had your picnic?
Probably 1:30, 1:45 maybe.
Okay. And what happened next?
We went down to the car to put our stuff in the car, and we were going to just hike up the trail a little ways. And this guy had gone by in a gray Toyota and gone down the road, turned around, and came back.
Okay.
And then he stopped and he asked us if we'd seen a red Blazer because he was looking for somebody.
All right. You mentioned he was driving a Toyota.
Right.
Can you describe it?
It was about an 84 or an 85 gray Toyota 4x4.
Truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it had a camper on it. I'm not real sure.
Not sure about that?
No, but I think so.
All right. Where were you then?
We were, let's see. When it first went by, we were sitting up there eating our lunch.
Okay. And then the second time, where were you?
We were down by our car putting our stuff in when we came back.
Okay. So in other words, he had gone through completely and then left?
Yeah. He had gone by and turned around and came back.
Okay. All right. Anything you noticed about the wheels or anything unusual?
No, just a real nice looking gray Toyota truck and maybe chrome wheels. I'm not real sure.
Okay. Was there only one person in it?
Yes.
All right. Can you describe him for me?
Yes. He was about 5'7" to 8.
Okay.
Dark, short hair, real cut, real close. He had really weird blue eyes.
Okay.
Didn't have a mustache, didn't have a beard, and wasn't wearing...
And was he clean shaven?
Yeah, and he was wearing, they're like hunter pants?
Camouflage?
Camouflage pants.
Okay. What were the colors in the pants?
It was like gray and brown, big spots.
Okay.
With big pockets on the sides.
Okay. So they had large pockets.
Yeah.
All right.
And he had on a white t-shirt.
Was it a t-shirt with sleeves or?
No, it was a sleeveless, like a tank top type.
Okay. Any design on that?
No.
Okay. All right. How old would you say the guy was?
He could have been 35 or 40.
Okay. White, Caucasian male?
Yeah.
When he asked you about the red blazer, did he get out of the truck?
Not when we saw him. No.
Okay. And so he was still sitting there in his truck when you and walked up the hill?
Right.
So you walked up the hill, and what happened next?
We just walked up. We took a couple of pictures, and we just stopped, and we was on that big tree that was laying down, and I took a picture of her there. And then I climbed over, and we looked back, and here he was right there behind us.
Okay. And if you could guess how far from the parking and turnaround area is the log?
Oh, I'd say maybe a mile up there.
Okay.
It wasn't very far.
And could you see the parking area from that log?
No.
Okay. So the parking area wasn't visible?
No.
Okay. So you turn around and he was there behind you.
Yeah, and he came up and he crossed over the log. I've kind of thought that was strange.
Okay. Where were you at when he did that?
Just on the other side of the log.
All right. So he crossed over to the same side you were on?
Yes.
Was he right by you?
Yes, he came up right behind me, put his left arm around my neck, and put a gun to my head.
Okay. So he's holding the gun in his right hand.
Right.
All right. And can you describe... I'm going to turn this off for just a second. Time is 10:58. Okay. We'll restart the tape there. Time after a short interruption from the social worker. Time is now about 10:52 and a half. Okay. Okay, so he grabbed you. Where was he in relation to you when he grabbed you?
He was right behind me.
All right. And where was...
She was right in front of me.
Okay.
I mean, right in front of me.
Was she facing you?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was right behind me.
Okay. And then he grabbed you around the neck with his left arm?
Uh-huh.
Held the gun to your head with his right hand?
Right.
What... Can you describe the gun?
I think it was an automatic, but I think it had one of those, what do you call it? You could slip in the...
A clip?
Clip type gun.
Do you know the difference between an automatic and a revolver or a handgun?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would recognize it if I saw it.
All right. What was the shape of the weapon?
It was kind of long and square.
Okay. Okay. What color was the gun?
It was like dark brown.
Okay. All right. When he did that, what happened next?
Okay. He took out some handcuffs, told to put the handcuffs on, one on her and one on me.
Okay. And did he say anything to you when he put the gun to your head?
He said, I want you to not make any noise and do exactly as I tell you.
Okay. Did he say anything about getting hurt?
Well, he said he didn't want to hurt us. If we'd cooperate, he wouldn't hurt us.
Okay. Okay, so he handed the cuffs to...
Right.
Totally handed them to her?
Yes.
All right. And he wanted her to put the handcuffs on?
Right.
Okay. And then what happened?
Told us to lay down on our stomachs.
All right.
And he took the cuff off, sat on back and took the cuff off her and told me to scoot up and put my arm around the tree and the cuff myself.
All right.
Well, I forgot about the struggling with him.
Okay.
And between that, tried to get the gun away from him and struggled with him, and we tried to help, and that's when he hit me in the side of the head.
Okay. So tried to get the gun away.
Yes.
How did she try to do that?
I don't remember exactly. She just tried, was wrestling with him, and then ran up and tried to get him, and I couldn't. And that's when he hit me and knocked me back into her.
Okay. And you have a raised area just adjacent to your eye on your temple area, on the right side of your face.
Yeah.
Is that where he hit you?
Yes.
What did he hit you with?
Backside of his fist.
Okay. And then what happened when he hit you?
And he told me to get up there and handcuff my arms around the tree. And when I did that, I just didn't tighten it all the way to the point where I thought maybe I could slip out of it if I had to.
Okay. And what was he doing while you were doing that?
He was holding down.
Okay.
And had the gun.
All right. And was being still, or what was she doing?
She was being still after that.
Okay. Prior to that, when he was walking you, did he say anything to you about, why he was doing this or anything?
No. Asked him why he was doing this, and he said, just shut up and do as I tell you.
Okay.
He didn't tell us what he was going to do or why he was going to do it or anything.
Okay. All right. So after you were handcuffed to the tree, what happened next?
He takes down and goes through the ravine and up through the other side, and then I couldn't see them any longer and went up to the other side.
Okay. So he went, did he cross the trail?
No, he went down through the creek.
And what did you do when they left?
He told me to be still, or otherwise he would kill her and come back and get me.
All right. And did you listen to what he said?
Yes. I didn't make a noise until I heard the gunshot, and then I ripped my hand out of the handcuff and took off running.
And what did you do then?
I took off and I ran down. I ran down toward the cars, and then I saw this, another white car was parked down there, but nobody was in it. And I ran down a little further past the truck, and I hid in the trees down on a bank so I could hide behind the tree so he couldn't see me. And I looked, but I didn't see him anywhere.
Okay. So you hid, and then what did you do?
Well, then I thought I heard some talking down further to the right, and so I just hauled down that way. I just ran down and tried to stay as low as I could, out of sight, because I didn't know if he was after me.
Did you look back at any time?
I looked back a couple of times to see if I could see anybody right on me, but I couldn't see anybody.
Okay. At that time, had you seen at all?
No.
Okay.
I hadn't heard or seen. Didn't hear anything.
Okay.
So we got in the car and we went down to the ranger station. It was closed, so we went over to the phone booth and called the police.
Okay. Who made the call?
Patty Wells.
Okay. And when did you next see?
At the ranger station when they brought her in.
Okay. And what did you notice about her appearance? Tell me what she looked like.
She was bloody from one end to the other. She was stabbed. She was just a mess.
Okay. And did she say anything to you?
She was just glad I was okay.
Okay. Statement will be concluded. Time is 1:10, about 11:08 hours. Date is the same. Standard closure.
What is interesting is in the face of trauma, your nervous system prioritizes certain things. You have a vivid memory of every part of this story, except you have no recollection of your call and our meeting with Skaggs. Think about how heightened your sense of everything was at that time. Your adrenaline, fear, nerves. In that moment, Michelle experienced the most traumatic parts of this encounter, and Sharon was able to stay a little more lucid. Sharon gave the better accounts. Patty was the youngest, but Patty was also the one that had the most, I'm going to guess, street smarts. I'm going to guess emotional intelligence, right? Because she had seen a lot more and lived a lot more.
I agree with you on that, but I think all of them in their own way were
No, they were instrumental.
super brave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sharon mentions that she thought it was really weird at first because they kind of saw him in the distance, and she thought he was waiting for somebody. That intuition crossed her mind. And it's like what Patty Wells said, always pay attention to your intuition.
Yeah.
Sharon brushed it off and went back to taking Michelle's photo. And then he came up behind her, put his arm around her neck and a gun to her head. From there, he ends up having the two of them handcuffed. So they're handcuffed to each other. He has them keep walking up the hill, up the trail a bit. And then he is about to handcuff Sharon to a tree. And he has Michelle lay face down on the trail. He lays the gun down by Michelle and she grabs it. But she couldn't see anything and was too scared she was going to shoot Sharon. So she never fired a shot. Then Sharon tries to get the gun from Michelle, and that's when he hits Sharon and knocks her down.
He hit her with a gun, didn't he?
Yeah. She says, we walked up a ways and stopped. He had me and was going to handcuff Sharon to a tree. And he made us sit on the embankment. And I had to lay on my belly, and he tried to straddle my back. And he was going to handcuff her to a tree, and he said, set the gun down. And I picked it up, and we had a scuffle. She says, I had a hold of the gun. Sharon jumped in, but he smacked her upside the head, and she went flying. He was sitting on my back, so I let go of the gun. She's asked, when you had the gun, did you think about shooting him or trying to get out of the situation with the gun? And she says, yes, but I didn't know where Sharon was, and I didn't want her to get shot. He was hitting me on the back of the head when I had a hold of the gun. Do you know what he was hitting you with? And she says, I think his own hands. She goes, I didn't know if we were going to make it back or not. Nothing like that's ever happened before. Never think something like that would happen going up to Mount Lemmon. And then she's asked, after Sharon was handcuffed to the tree, you took off by yourself, is that right? And she says, yes. And did he still have the gun at that time? She says, yes. Was he pointing the gun at you? She says, yes. And then she's asked, as you were walking away from where Sharon was handcuffed, what were you thinking? And she says that I might not ever see her again. I didn't know what to think. I was afraid the guy was going to kill me, though. She goes on to say that he seemed pretty calm and that if she just did what he said, she thought that he might just let them go. Okay, so then they go back to talking about the struggle over the gun. Do you remember whether or not the defendant was wearing a watch or anything happened at that time? And she says he lost his watch and he had to pick it up out of the weeds. When you say he lost his watch, can you tell the judge a little bit more? She goes, I think his hand came out of it and it fell off his wrist. Do you remember describing the watch to the police? She says yes. It was a silver colored, had a mesh band, blue face on it, and kind of a square face. So what kind of watch is that?
That's a Casio D power bank. So great.
But would somebody in the military have a watch like that?
Yeah. The cool thing about that watch is it has a stopwatch. He might have had an alarm set. It's really funny because when you profile, there's a certain type of people that wear that watch. And there's this running joke of, oh, are you a science teacher? Do you look like Jeffrey Dahmer? Or are you a little nerd?
I often wonder if it's the watch Shirley got him.
Yeah. She got one for Eddie and for Danny. And he's wearing it in their wedding.
Then they go into more details about which direction they walked. He gets into a little bit more detail about what happened to Michelle. Sharon's on the trail handcuffed to a tree, not knowing what's going on. I think this is interesting. The lawyer goes, and I'm not asking you this to embarrass you or to make you relive any terrible memories, but I'd like you to tell the judge what happened at that point. And she goes, he told me to get undressed. I laid my clothes down. He put the gun to my head and I had oral sex with him. And then that's where we pick it up on episode 1.
And you were facing him?
Yeah.
How long did you have his penis in your mouth? Do you remember?
Just long enough he got an erection, it seemed like.
And she mentions that he was wearing a fishing type shirt. The next question is, after he made you have oral sex with him, what happened? Michelle says, he told me to lay back.
By inside you, you mean he put his penis in your vagina?
Yeah.
When he was having intercourse with you, did he still have the gun in his hand?
I didn't want to look at him.
And at that point, she's describing she didn't look. She had her arm over her eyes. And then they ask her what happened after that. He got up, told me I could get dressed, told me to roll over, and tied my hands up. She laid there for a minute, and then she heard the gun go off, and her head hurt. And then she began to feel a stab in her back. She only remembers 2 of them, but she ended up being stabbed 5 times.
It's interesting, right? He made her get dressed and then started injuring her. It's almost like it was 2 different rituals.
They do ask her, following this, they ask her, did his demeanor change at any time during the contact you had with him? And she says, after we got in that scuffle, he seemed a little bit shakier, and he didn't say a whole lot more after that. Pretty sure that threw him off. He let Sharon handcuff herself to the tree. He was probably really nervous at this point.
He lost his watch?
She goes on to say that she was scared to death. She didn't know if she was ever going to see anybody again. And she couldn't understand why this guy was doing this to her. They go on to make it a really big point of the fact that she cooperated. So they ask her multiple times, like, in spite of cooperating with him, he stabbed you? Yes. In spite of cooperating with him, he shot you? In spite of doing what he told, he hurt you. Like, they were trying to prove that in court.
Does that make that seem like more of a violation? Like because he told them that at the beginning, hey, if you guys listen, I won't do anything. Is that, do you think, to give more of an illustration on his dishonest character? Because why should it matter, right?
I think they were trying to prove that it was all pre-planned. His defense, he's saying he was just having a bad day and he snapped. But he went up there with the handcuffs, the rope, the knife. It was very well thought out.
Yeah.
After all of that, they ask her, did you hear noises that would indicate he left? Like whether he walked away or ran away? And she says, no. The gun going off so close to her head, her ears were ringing. So she didn't hear anything. And they go, were you wearing a watch at the time? Did you know what time it was? She says, yes, not at that point. We were up there, though, about 2:30, so it had to have happened sometime after that. This happened in broad daylight at a family campground. They went on to ask her, as you were lying face down with your hands tied behind your back, did you know what time it was? She says, no. And she says it would be a guess, but it seemed like forever. But it couldn't have been that long. Sharon heard the gunshot, and he wasn't too far behind Sharon. They go, what did you do at that point? She says, I tried to sit up and get my hands free. Eventually, I got my wrists out. They said, as you sat up, were you in pain? She says, yes, my ear was. I could hear the air coming out of my stab wound out of my back. They go, did that scare you? She says, yes. And then they go, do you remember whether you were bleeding from any place? And she says, my head was. My back felt like it was. So you sat up and you decided you were going to try and get away. She says, yes, but I tried to put my tennis shoes on. I thought Sharon, I didn't see her. I walked down the hill to my car. And then they asked her, do you know what happened to Sharon at that point? She said, no. But I thought maybe he had taken her and shot her, but I wasn't sure. I thought I saw the tree that she was handcuffed to, but I didn't see her, so I just assumed he had taken her somewhere. So Michelle, at this point, is probably going to go get help, like not only to save her, but to save Sharon, not knowing that Sharon's the one getting help to save Michelle. And then she says, I got down to my car and I got in it and I drove up to where the road forks. There were some people there and I stopped and asked them for help. So obviously that was the Salem she ran into. And this is an interesting question. At the risk of sounding incredibly stupid, did you make a conscious choice that you wanted to live through that experience? She says yes. And is that why you acted the way you did in terms of getting your hand out from the rope? She says yes. We'd like to show you some pictures and ask you if you recognize what this is. This has been marked as State's Exhibit 1. Do you know what that picture is of? She says, my back. Do you remember when this picture was taken? She says at the hospital, maybe a couple days after. This is State's Exhibit number 2. Do you know what this is? She says, that's the top of my head. Did you have these wounds before you came into contact with Stephen Skaggs? No. Then they go on to talk about what kind of gun it was. It was a 9mm. They ask her if she ever saw the knife. She never saw the knife. He was wearing cargo pants, though, so I'm sure he had a pocket for his gun, pocket for his knife, pocket for the rope.
And on those military pants, he probably had holsters for everything.
They go on to ask her more about, like, her injuries. She did say that one of her lungs collapsed and filled with blood, and they had to put a chest tube in. This is really fascinating, too. She said because of this, and because of all the x-rays and attention to her lungs, while she was there, a doctor actually found a spot on her lung, and she probably wouldn't have known it was there if this hadn't happened. So if you're going to look at something positive happening from this,
Silver lining, right?
yeah, the silver lining was that.
A lot of these guys smoked at the time. She could have had lung cancer, and that probably
She might, I mean, she was only 27 years old, but yeah, you never know. They go on to ask her what her hospital bill was. She says she's had a few different bills. One that my insurance covered was $3,900 and some change.
In 1986, though?
1986. And then she goes, and one I still owe at the hospital is for $1,185. They ask her, are you having trouble paying those? And she says, I can't pay them. She goes, they wait until last month is in the bill, and then they want all the money right now. I'm not a money tree. I don't know where I'm going to get the money. Hopefully she received some money. I'm sure she did. They ask her, what do you think should happen to Stephen Elvis Skaggs? And she says, I think he should get the full amount of sentence. I don't think he paid any attention to me on Mount Lemmon. The fact that he tried to shoot me and I was stabbed that many times, for somebody not wanting to kill somebody, that was pretty drastic, which I agree with her. They ask her, so you think the judge should impose the maximum amount of sentence possible? She says, I think so. I'd be kind of scared if he got out in 8 or 10 years. She goes on to say that she's scared. She's especially scared at night, and that she doesn't leave the house without a gun. Her and Sharon took self-defense classes after this, and they remained friends. Sharon moved away to Oregon about 4 or 5 years later, but they would travel to see each other all the way up until Sharon passed away in 2000.
Wow.
I think about Lemmon, I've always felt a connection to Sharon and Michelle. I've never met them. I didn't even know their names until 2019 when I ordered the court transcripts. In the story I knew, just like all of Shirley's stories.
It was a very Cliff's Notes story.
Well, yeah, and it was scary, right? But then I'm reading these interviews and police reports, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is worse than I even imagined it was. Yeah. A whole new fear crept in. And then you have those, like, I think about Lemmon. It's very fear-based, right? It's the reason for my fear of Stephen Skaggs. And you sit there and you think, this is irrational. Of course he's not going to get out of jail and seek revenge on Shirley and attack us at night and kill us all in our beds. The thoughts that I had at 16 years old. Well, what if he escapes from prison? Or what if his cell buddy owes him a huge favor and it's like this guy we don't even know? I don't, like, crazy, irrational fears. But then at the same time, I sit back and I'm like, are these irrational fears? When I sit there and read through these police reports and court transcripts, I'm like, this is somebody capable of doing that.
Yeah.
So Mount Lemmon was the root of the fear.
The biggest challenge with this whole project is the timeline and the accelerated deadlines. Do you feel that episode 1 achieved everything you've envisioned for the last 6 years?
Yeah, and more.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so when I met you, I've lived with this story for 25 years. I was working on it heavily for the last, 5-6 years. And there's only so much I can tell you without you actually listening to the interviews. Mm-hmm. You probably thought initially, you're like, these are some wild stories. I don't know. Are these real?
I was expecting half of them to be inflated a little bit, but still the core story, right? Just the sentence that you just slid in. Yeah, my stepmother was married to a guy that went to prison for attempted murder. Like that sentence.
Oh, and then that sentence goes on. He attacked 2 women on Mount Lemmon. Oh, and he's the prime suspect in a cold case. Oh, and the FBI was looking at him into the disappearances of 18 other women in Alaska.
Yeah.
So you add so I knew all of that. I didn't know their names. I didn't know exactly what happened on the mountain. I knew he was in jail for, what the newspaper said, rape, attempted murder and kidnapping. But I did know about the Alaska. Shirley had told me that he was, and Corain had told me, he's also wanted in connection with disappearances of 18 other women. And I'm like, what? And then as I'm researching, because I got curious and I would Google it too, just like Roger would and Jamie. And then you discover, okay, I knew there was a cold case. Oh my gosh, here it is. It's on the internet. It's Joan Marie Archer. Like everything's coming together and everything your stepmom and stepsister ever told you is actually printed.
Yeah.
It's real. The stuff did happen. So it goes from becoming this wild fear of him and coming to seek revenge on Shirley and all of us, because she left him, and you would see her, she was in fear, to, okay, here's the facts, and they're just as scary as what I envisioned, if not more.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it real, right? Because you hear stories from like your family,
Yeah.
and it just kind of lives there, and like you kind of create your own perception of it or fill in the blanks. So when there's a story that you're actually able to research,
It's rare because a lot of stories like that are almost like family legends and myths.
and right, and there's
But-
no research on it, or it lives in almost a fantasy world. Like, did that really happen?
Every single story.
What's that movie? Is it Big Fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah. But I've thought about Big Fish a lot because at the end you get this payoff of like, oh, these are all the dudes, right?
Yeah.
But they still imply that the stories were a little inflated as time went on. With this one, the documentation to verify every single story for me to witness has been, oh, wow. This went from a hunch to a guess to testimony of multiple people to public documents that all align.
Oh, and that's what happened when I started researching Mount Lemmon, and I started seeing Jamie's name, Sharon's name, both Sharon's, Roger's name, Keith's name, researching Joan and Mount Lemmon and seeing all their names, and then actually locating these people
Yeah.
and contacting them and then hearing their voice and hearing them tell me the story. That was like a whole nother level. And there was almost this even deeper connection. And then to discover that they were still...
It's still, yeah, this has heavily
like they still
impacted-
think about
yeah.
it. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one in this world that thinks about Mount Lemmon or thinks about Joan Marie Archer. Because you think you're the only, like it only affected Shirley. And then
No.
you start to realize, and that's what I kind of mean by it's so big. This story is so big, and there are so many other stories living within this story.
And it continues to unify people through it because it was a deeply rooted core memory for so many people. I'm never going to forget talking to Roger and Keith and clearing the air, clarifying miscommunications that have lasted 40 years. I'm never going to forget your face on the phone with Patty when she's like, I never knew. Right? and then this really almost conflicting paradox where you had to sit with Skaggs and hear things from him that you didn't know. And that's such a strange thing to process. Like, you've been the source of my fear for all these years, and now for this moment, you're being the source, connecting me to this sweet memory of this woman that raised me most of my life. That's so incredible to me.
But so many emotions. I felt like we had to compartmentalize, like we put them in two separate boxes. Like that day with Skaggs, the phone call I had with Skaggs and that day with Skaggs was for Shirley's story.
And then I think you read me some journal entries and I was like, she's got a very lighthearted cheekiness about her that I think this whole thing should mirror. It reminded me of old comedies that were kind of dark. It reminded me of Airplane, the Mel Brooks stuff, like the Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, the History of the World, where they did a spoof of Hitler on Ice. Like this weird. I don't remember where we were when I came up with that name. Did I call you? Did I drive away and then call you? It needs to be called Shirley. You Can't Be Serious.
I don't even think you showed me the name first. Yeah. Like you didn't tell me. I think I came over to your house. You're like, I have a recording studio. Let's just see what happens. Come on over. I'll show it to you. And I came over and you had like
logos.
You had logos. You're like, check these out. And I was like, okay, universe, I think this is my side.
Well, and Shirley, You Can't Be Serious is the most famous line from the movie Airplane.
The stewardess said both pilots.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I had never seen that movie, so I didn't quite get the
reference.
the reference, but I was like, yeah, I kind of feel that way about all of her stories. Like, whoa, Shirley. And this is what I would do with her when she was alive and she'd be telling me a story. I'm like, hold on, start from the beginning. What happened?
Yeah. It's just weird. All the little synchronicities, all the little things that have just aligned in a weird way, right? I think it's deeper than that, though. I think it's her mode of minimal communication that also plays into her dry humor. And that's why I think it's genius. And that's why the creative decision was made to have the show that way. That's why every episode, there's a lot of really subtle hints, and you almost have to listen to it 2 or 3 times to hear, wait, why did they do that? The way that she writes her journals, right? They're these fragmented, almost like haikus. They're not complete thoughts, but they are. And that's why these episodes are actually kind of hard to follow for people that are used to these types of podcasts, because a lot of these podcasts, it'll all be very literal and drawn out and on the nose, and all the information is there. And then in the next episode, it's all the same information plus 20% more. And these episodes fall together like their own little, like you can listen to all of these and they're almost like their own Tales from the Crypt stories, but they all go together. But I think for me, the first thing that caught my attention about her journals is water heater went out. Eddie got arrested, went and got food for the cats and dogs, airplane crashed in the front yard. It's like these little tiny fragments. There's no hierarchy where she's talking about, oh, Chrissy got a UTI. Oh, but Steve did this. I think that to me it's just a list of information in an order, and you don't know where the punchline is until you step back and look at it again.
Thursday, April 28th, 1983. Went to going away luncheon at Duke's for Sue. Took 1 hour and 15 minutes to get food. Asked Steve if I did anything to irritate him. Here's his list. 1. Do not disturb during news. 2. Do not leave dishes overnight. 3. Do not harass. 4. Do not smother. Tuesday, June 21st, 1983. Went to see Return of the Jedi. I thought it was dumb. A group of teddy bears defeated the stormtroopers. A new villain in the story was a giant toad with a runny nose, and Darth Vader turned into a good guy. Stupid. Thursday, November 18th, 1982. Backed out of garage, but forgot to close car door. Smashed into garage door. Door will only close halfway. Steve had to come home from work to fix it. He didn't yell. Friday, April 1st, 1983. Got up early and tied balloons to car Steve was taking to work. Had day off, cleaned house and sewed. 50 degrees and beautiful. Eddie and Mike sunbathed on the deck. Steve ordered 83 Toyota truck, should be in next week. Had family conference regarding complaints and problems with each other. Went real well. Was real proud of how Steve handled it.
And I think that was, when it came time for editing, following those patterns is what made it so fresh. Like, the storytelling is it's very Pulp Fiction. It's very, because when you listen to Mount Lemmon, episode 1, when we sat down with Wes, we had a 4-hour briefing, and I told him, hey, these are the 50 elements that need to be dropped into some kind of order, but it doesn't have to be chronologically. I want each episode to flow emotionally. And that's how Shirley's journal is, right? If you read her journal, Steve stayed home from church to watch the game. Hope God forgives him, right? Like those are like big, deep, you think about consequential things perhaps because of her faith, but then it's a pun. And she was very aware of that. She was very conscious that she was doing that all the time, right? Because she would say, oh, Eddie backed into the Subaru. He had to go meet with the inspectors on going to jail. Chrissy's still peeing on the couch. So I think it's so cool. Some of the original trailers that we were doing at the beginning, it was you talking about Shirley and you saying, oh, she volunteered at Paws Patrol. She ran the ministry. She put ketchup on everything. Like there's 3 things. Like we have a 10-second thing. And if you ask Shirley, hey, tell me the 3 most important things that happened in your life in 1984, I feel like that's how she would have said it. She would have been like, oh, the cops came to the house. Steve got sent to Iceland. And the front yard was full of yellow daffodils. And I think in her mind, it would have all been, you know what I mean? Like the way that she was experiencing all these things. And I wonder if that's a product of her life always having such intensity, right? Like growing up next to a mob boss, your dad yelling and screaming, your mom taking 3 hours to get ready and then, deciding to get plastic surgery at 60. Like, how do you reconcile all of those things? And so meeting somebody like Ed just felt like business as usual to her, which is crazy because Steve Skaggs was a change of pace for her. So that's why Mount Lemmon, when we talked about it and you were like, hey, it probably needs to start climax first and then give backstory. I thought that was genius storytelling.
I have always wanted to start this story with Mount Lemmon. Mainly because Mount Lemmon is what haunts me. Like that story. So if you think about it, part of this story is me conquering my fear. And why am I so scared? I knew that there was 2 girls. I thought about them all the time. Anytime that I was hiking, I would think about them. But thinking of when you think about Shirley's life, and maybe this wasn't fair to start with Mount Lemmon. I don't know. But to me, when you think about Shirley's life, what was the craziest thing that happened? What was probably her craziest day that she ever lived?
Getting back to how to tell this story and putting together, I think the biggest challenge in the editing process was how do we maintain all of this chaos and still stay true or do justice to all of the human parts of the story. And so one of the styles that we decided early on to use as a device was you start the episode, kind of chaos, kind of confusion, and then there's a resolve at the end where somebody's human touch brings the calm. And I think the episode that does that the best is the Mount Lemmon episode because it's all of these scary moments. Halfway through, you're like, man, I wish I knew. I wish we could talk to Patty Wells. And then we find Patty Wells. It's perfect when you first call her and she's like, hold on. That's so perfect. And she's on I-10. And then
I think I was in shock because I'm like, wait, that's her? We're on the phone with Patty Wells?
Yeah.
I've dreamt of talking to Patty Wells for the last 4 years.
Yeah. And that becomes the culmination of all that work you did for all those years. But it also comes to the culmination of present day Mount Lemmon and where everybody's landed in their healing. And I think that was the most powerful. And look, I was sitting here late at night editing that. And I had 3 different versions of the episode, right? Like 3 different cuts where we started calm at the beginning and look back. We started, and Wes had helped me with that. And we're idiots. We had labeled them all different things. We kept looking at each other and I'd say, do I want to eat my salad first or I want dessert first with this episode? Do I want the main course right in your face and then just take sips at the end? And so we even labeled all of these original files have they're called salad first. They're so stupid. But the way that it played out with Jamie and Sharon, they're so colorful and they bring such great texture in their voices and in their mannerisms and their expressive energy. And then Patty brings both of those things. She comes in at first and she brings the most comic relief, right? And then she just calms everything down. And she brings this sense of, I mean, with everything that she says, obviously, but even just with the way that she is so present in the call and so mindful of everything, she's the one that brings the episode all the way down to this, I'm not going to say happy ending, but it's like this peaceful, okay, we're all safe. Like this is this calm after all of this chaos. And the closure too, where you tell her, hey, by the way, these are all the details. And she's like, oh, I never knew.
Yeah, that was so shocking. That was something else I discovered working on this story. Like, well, I've always kind of felt like a outsider, right? I know about all these people. None of them knew about me.
Yeah.
But it was really, for a long time, I'm like, why am I so connected to this? Like, why is this have such an effect on my life? Why? Yeah. But I think there was this sense of realizing that everyone involved needed some sort of closure still. Like I wasn't the only one. So that made me feel even more linked to all of these people involved in the story, especially listening to Jamie. Like listening to him tell me he's always had this need to talk to Skaggs. Like he was just a 10-year-old kid that day. It's interesting, like what is that inside of us that makes us have this need to figure things out or to solve things or to conquer things? Like for me, it was like I was always so scared of Skaggs. And there was a huge part of me that always wanted to know what happened to those victims. Like every single time. I'm a huge hiker. And there's not one hike. It could be in broad daylight and I'm with a group of 6 other people, but there's not one hike where I do not think about, where they do not cross my mind, especially on the hikes, the night hikes, where it's just me and one other friend. And then I tell the story to that friend and I'm like, yeah. But there is this sense of connection. Even when I reached Danny, like I've always wanted to talk to Danny and Leslie too. And it's like we all have these shared moments in life, all in different time periods. So for instance, like I was only 2 years old in 1986. But just knowing that I have this connection to Danny and Leslie in a weird way where I'm like, oh my gosh, we each shared the same stepmom, but at different periods of our life. Like, what was she like for you? Was she the same stepmom that she is for me? It's interesting. I don't know.
Isn't there some irony in this idea that Skaggs is the one that pointed it out? And he says, this thing that you're doing is a tribute to Shirley, right? And then you look at how this tribute to Shirley has been the catalyst for everybody to get the closure, right?
Yeah.
Like this project has become, Patty would have probably gone the rest of her days not finding that closure or not knowing where.
Yeah.
Connecting Roger and Keith. Keith would have gone the rest of his days thinking that Joan's family thought he did it.
Well, and that was an interesting one to me too, because I just assumed Keith and Roger were in contact.
Well,
I had no idea. But then you look at it and you're like, wait, Roger was only a 13-year-old kid though. Why would he have Keith's phone number?
No.
Or why would he have Keith's contact? But that never even crossed my mind until after we aired episode 5. And then I get those 2 texts from each of them.
Yeah. And that's the catalyst, right? Like the only way the universe gives you those answers is if you're able to look outside of your perception that is very much influenced by your traumas and your life experience. And what I'm getting at is you got to hear some really sweet stories about Shirley from Skaggs, right? Sitting down with Skaggs. Had you said, hey, I've decided I'm never going to go near this dude, or I'm never going to talk to this guy, he's a monster, or whatever, he wouldn't have filled in a lot of the gaps of stories of Shirley. So I think that is a really powerful thing, where stepping outside of that fear and stepping outside of that box, which there's so many people in this story that are still very much in a box. And I think that's what's brought so much positiveness that's brought so much to so many people. And I think that, to me, watching that firsthand has been the most rewarding thing.
Yeah. And we've only covered. This story is so big.
Yeah.
The Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast is only like, what would you say, 20%?
Not even that.
And that's what was so daunting during my research originally, and even in my time working with Otavia, is anywhere you looked, whether it was Mount Lemmon, whether it was the Joan Marie Archer case, whether it was just Shirley's life, whether, like, anywhere you looked had stories within stories within stories.
Yeah.
And it came to a point where, like, well, I have to close some of these doors, or I'm going to spend the next 20 years just researching. And then once I got the transcripts and the police reports, reading Patty Wells's interview, I was like, I have to find her. I have to meet her. She not only saved the day, but the way she gave her interview, I felt so connected to her when I was, writing rough drafts. I was originally going to start with Sharon running down right after she heard the gunshot, slipped her hand out of the handcuff, and was running down the trail barefoot. And the thoughts, because in her interview, she tells the police or the detective that all she could think about was getting home to her son that day. So I think that kind of resonated with me as a mother. And that's probably what gave her strength to run barefoot, 2 miles down a dirt trail. And she kept thinking he was right behind her too. She said she would like turn around a little bit, see if he was chasing her. She'd trip, she'd get back up, keep running. So I always saw that scene in my head. But then after, Patty Wells was a good start too.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Like, you think about survival is a pretty good theme throughout. Patty Wells was the one that saved the day because she was in survival mode. Mm-hmm. Right? She was a young person that...
She was 22.
Yeah. And she had been, right, part of the system as a kid. And she had already gone through a great deal of trauma. And she was the one that actually took action, that wasn't scared. And...
Yeah, to go into a little bit more detail on why I say Patty Wells saved the day was she was the one, everybody started freaking out once Sharon, here you are with your girlfriends having, just a relaxed day up on the mountain. Patty Wells talks about going and getting her beer and cigarettes. So they weren't up there to do like this intense hike. They were up there just to like chill and hang out. And all of a sudden, this frantic woman emerges on the trail with a handcuff on and terror in her face. And Jan and Fran were scared to death. They were older than Patty, but they were scared to death, like in shock. And Patty's the one that like ushered everybody to get low. She's the one that, told Jan, okay, we got to get back to your car. You need to drive us. There's going to be a phone at the Palisades Ranger Station. Like, Patty was the one thinking through stuff. Mm-hmm. But not only that, when they pulled up to the ranger station, it was locked. Nobody was there. And so Patty came up with the idea. She said, because they were too scared to get out of the car. Patty had gone up to the door to see if it was open, and it was closed. And they were like, let's just drive down the mountain. Let's just drive down the mountain. Let's go get help. Patty was like, no, we need to call 911. But the phone booth was across the street. So she tells Jan, drive over to the phone booth. And Jan and Fran, and obviously Sharon, were scared to death to get out of the car. Patty was the one that said, I'll get out. I'll call 911. So she's the one that got out of the car. Everybody else is like huddled up in a locked car, and poor Patty's just out in the open making this 911 call.
911 Sheriff's Department.
My name is Patricia Wells. I'm up at the Palisades up in Mount Lemmon. We just found a girl found us. She was taken by a guy with a gun, and her friend is still up there. The guy left. We were at Bear Wallow.
Okay, where's the girl now?
She's with us.
She's there at...
One of the girls
Palisades?
is with us. The other girl is up on the mountain. We heard a shot shortly after, and then this other girl stopped by.
Okay. Calm down. What's your name, please?
My name is Patricia Wells. We drove down to Palisades to try and find help. The ranger station is closed, so I'm in the phone booth.
Okay, what kind of vehicle are you in there?
We're in a 86 white Toyota or Datsun. Was it a Toyota or a Datsun? A Datsun.
A sedan? Pickup?
Pardon me?
Is it a sedan? A pickup? What?
It's a sedan. The pickup, the car that was the guy that was in it that did this to the woman is in a recent new.
Okay, hold on a second. I should have an officer real close to you. Let me get him started. Stay on the phone, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to find Jan and Fran.
Fran.
We did meet Patty in person, and that was a real treat. As just right now meeting with you, anything else that has come to your mind as we've sat together?
I believe that this is going to bring healing to a lot of different people and hopefully accountability to some of the people, especially that should have been accountable, and hopefully that the universe will not let him hurt anyone else ever.
It was so nice to meet you, Patty.
You too, sweetie.
And we got to bring your dad along, and we've gotten to bring him along on a lot of these adventures, which gotta be really heavy for your dad. He just lost a version of Shirley that he thought he was going to remember forever, and now he's met a completely different version of Shirley, and he's been a great sport.
Oh, he's been so... I think it was February 2023. No, February 2024. I was still working on the Joan Marie Archer case, and we were given some police reports that contained other potential suspects. Not just Stephen Skaggs, but there were 4 other men that were interviewed.
Uh-huh.
And they were obviously they were Native American and part of the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. So their files are not within Pima County Sheriff's.
Mm-hmm.
So I was telling my dad I was coming down to Arizona. I was like, Dad, you want to take a trip with me to Sells? It's probably a 2-hour drive through the most desolate desert ever from Tucson to Sells, Arizona, to go to the Tohono O'odham police station and get these rap sheets on these.
You want to go
4
get
criminals.
some fried bread?
Yeah. I'm like, Dad, you want to go with me to the police station?
Yeah.
And he was always like, yeah, I'd love to. So he drives with me to Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, and we make it a day. But he's been a trooper. I would say the last 6 years, all my visits down, there hasn't been one visit where I've gone back to Arizona where I didn't work on this podcast in some way or another. Whether I was gathering reports, interviewing, even just interviewing Shirley, just working on it. And he has been probably our number 1 fan.
Yeah.
Our biggest supporter.
Yeah. Sorry, Frank. No, I think it's deeper than that too, though, right? He understands. He hasn't intervened in the truth of the story. Because your dad, out of reverence for Shirley, could be like, hey, I don't want you guys to put anything negative, or I don't want you guys to share anything that Eddie said, or anything that would.
That thought even crossed my mind. Like after sitting down with Eddie, there were thoughts. I was like, do we only put the good stuff in? Are people not? This is her memoir in a way. And I'm like, do we put all of it in? And of course, that is the decision I knew we had to do, but that even crossed my mind. So I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
It's probably taking so much and my dad not to tell us.
And had your dad raised any kind of concern, obviously we would have honored any wishes that he had, right? Like had your dad said, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. And so previewing these with your dad before we put them out, and like I could feel it in my chest, and sitting there and then watching him get emotional and seeing him react, but still being so graceful about it has been another gift to Shirley's life, right? She really did find the right person. Even after she's gone, he continues to be so sincere. I think that's why in episode 6, where We knew all the things that had to be in there that he said about her. But also there's that moment that's so genuine and it's so out there, you know, and he's like, well, they wanted to introduce me to her because they said she was big-breasted.
God.
And
that was like an hour into him sobbing and crying, trying to
Yeah.
talk about Shirley. And then he throws that at us.
Yeah.
We're just like, wait, what?
that just shows you, right, how bluntly it's just so genuine. The truth doesn't shield you, and he's not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a real gift to have your dad in that capacity, because we've had free reign to really tell the story how we wanted. As dark as it is, even in some parts, as like this story leaves you hanging from episode 1 through 7. It forces you to fill in the gaps. It forces you to feel certain emotions. It challenges you to feel empathy for people that are antagonists. It builds you up at the beginning. At first, it's like, this is the scariest scene ever. And then, you know, that teaser at the end of episode 1 where Whiskags answers the phone and you drop your drink. Like, oh my goodness, she talked to this dude. I'm going to hang in there. And then for 6 episodes, we don't say anything about it. And then episode 2 starts, little kid Shirley, and you see Clay. And then you understand the Ed story. And then you go into...
Oh, you're just barely starting to understand the Ed story.
Yeah. But then it also forces you to fall in love with Eddie in episode 3. And then in 4, it challenges you because you're rooting for Eddie. But then you realize as a listener, I don't morally align with Eddie. What's this double standard where now it's okay for Shirley and me as a listener to say it's okay that Eddie and his friends are stealing cars? It's a very complex story. And there's no good guys or bad guys. Yeah, there's some guys that are bad guys more than others.
We have a couple really bad guys in the story.
But, you know, even Eddie, who will never be able to fully recover from the trauma that his dad put him through, get emotional and say, hey, there was some good in my dad. Hey, my dad never killed animals. You know, there's also this recurring theme of strays, right? Stray dogs, stray cats, stray people.
And we just didn't have the room for it, but there were so many homeless people. Like on their drive up to the Alaska on the Alcan Highway, Ed picked up like 2 hitchhikers.
Yeah.
So I was sleeping in a car with 2 kids and a dog. He was towing a truck, sleeping in the truck with 2 dogs and a hitchhiker that we had picked up on our way.
So they were camping with, it wasn't just Ed, Shirley, and the kids. It was Ed, Shirley, kids, and random hitchhikers.
Yeah. And then Shirley does, though. She casually says, hey, you know, Corain's friend from work came and lived with us for a year. She was homeless.
And then I had my 2 kids and several neighborhood kids. We picked up a homeless girl that was living in her car. My daughter was working with her. She got kicked out of her home, living in her car in Alaska. So she came and lived with us for about a year. She was a sweetheart. And she left when she got married. And then I was the neighborhood mom. Most of Eddie's friends' moms had left the picture.
But then Shirley also says, we get to Alaska and we run out of money. And for a month, we just did.
They lived in their car.
Yeah, we lived in our car. And
So we finally, this wonderful couple let us move into their house and rent it for just the first month's rent. And then we made up the difference, you know, as we lived there. They were awesome.
Maybe that's why she had such a soft spot for homeless people. Even her and my dad have taken in homeless people over the years. I never knew who was going to be at Thanksgiving every year. Like there was always somebody that they had just took in off the streets like a couple months prior, and they were helping them get clean and helping them, you know, go through organizations through their church and gospel rescue mission and living with them, and they would be at Thanksgiving. So sure, they were always helping people. I think that's something Shirley's always done throughout her entire life.
yeah.
Well, she even talks about as a teenager, she picked up a hitchhiker and got stuck on the railroad tracks.
So I decided to go up the back way, you know, which is, it was normal. You know, we went the back way a lot of times. But they had done some road construction and they had moved the road. And I didn't realize that. And so I got stuck on the railroad tracks. And it was about 9:30. The 10 o'clock train goes through every single night. So there is a train that is coming through at 10 o'clock, and I am stuck on the railroad tracks.
And you're by yourself?
I had a girlfriend with me, and we had picked up a hitchhiker, but he was a young kid, and he didn't have anything to get me off the railroad track. We needed chains, so here we are sitting on a railroad track. Thank goodness my dad decided to take the same detour. Okay. So he comes up behind me, and he has chains. So he pulls me off of the railroad tracks, and I'm like, head on home.
No, and then Skaggs talks about, would you believe I have 9 stray cats?
Yeah.
Feral cats. There's a lot of Americana themes, too, in this that I wanted to talk about. That, first of all, serial killers are so American and so deeply rooted in, like, our culture where, in a very unhealthy way, we kind of idolize them, right? And to the point where this story talks about women's relationship to men like this. There's also, like, driving up the Alpine Highway and picking up vagrants and things like that. That's also a very American, it's a very Jack Kerouac thing. You think about how people used to jump on, like, freight trains and go across the country, and, like, there's this beatnik undertones to it, which Alaska kind of has. Like, all these pipeline guys, they were rough dudes. And Shirley had encounters with a lot of these dudes that were of different walks of life. We tried to stay subtle with those details, right? When she was like, oh, Charlie, yeah, he's one.
He was homeless too.
Yeah.
Remember, she goes, he was living in his car, so I let him rent out the back bedroom for a year.
And so you do see there's a very patriarchal theme to the whole thing where so-and-so was the head of the electric company, and so-and-so was this. And a lot of Americana, where with the World War II themes and the Vietnam themes and the Dust Bowl, we really wanted to capture just kind of the look and feel of that. Shirley's story was perfect for that.
And just, she lived through a lot. She was part of a lot of major happenings in history.
Yeah.
Like even going to South Africa.
The apartheid,
being there during the apartheid, and her brother being killed in the Vietnam War, and heading up to Alaska during the height of the pipeline. Like, these are huge moments in history.
How interesting it is that they were able to do that up the Alcan Highway. And her muscle car, it's the Ford Fairlane, and in the peak of, like, crime family culture in the middle of Ohio.
Oh yeah, growing up, she's born in 1944, so growing up in the 1950s, like, where your little town, Bridgeport, Ohio, was ran by a mob boss.
Yeah.
In her subtle way of being like, even the kids knew, everyone knew, except the police.
And then she got to experience California surf culture. She got to experience, like, a lot of neat things. Oh, the McCarthy incident in Alaska.
Yeah.
All the Robert Hansen stuff.
Yet she has no memory of the Robert Hansen stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably the thing that shocked me the most when interviewing her, was her detail to so many other stories and so many other happenings in history, except no mention of, I even asked her straight out, do you remember Robert Hansen? The guy lived 10 miles away from them.
Yeah.
He was killing people in Alaska the time period she was there. She had to have been hearing all of the missing women on the news in Alaska, unless she never watched. I have no idea. Maybe she didn't watch the news.
She was too busy to watch the news.
Or not even that, but just like...
You know what? She didn't, because in her journal entry, in her list, it says, do not interrupt Skaggs while he's watching the news. You know what, though? An interesting thought that I had is there's things that she had blocked out. In further talking to your dad, and he revealed some really, really dark things that we didn't go into in any of the show. I wouldn't be surprised that as she was having some of these traumatic events, she was blocking things out.
She could have been.
Right? Like, she was a woman alone trying to keep her kids afloat, having interactions that...
This story just popped into my head. The story she told me once. She said it would get so cold in Alaska. This was when she lived in the manufactured home and it was just her and the 2 kids. That really early in the morning, like 4 a.m., because the kids would have to go to school, she'd go to work. She would crawl underneath the manufactured trailer in the dead of winter with a blow dryer to unfreeze the pipes.
Wow.
Like, that's pretty... I know after World War II, a lot of, the men went back to Alaska to start families and they started building subdivisions then. But I think Shirley was there during the height of it. She even talks about the subdivision that was being built where her and Skaggs bought their home. And She mentions, homes are being built clear down to the river. She was at the height of it all.
was
Like
roughing
she
it.
was, yeah, she was roughing it.
Isn't that interesting that she stayed there though, even after
That
Ed
she
died?
loved it.
Yeah.
Especially when all of the other mothers were leaving. The women did not like Alaska during that time period. A lot of them left their husbands and their kids behind and went back down to the States.
She took the dogs and he got the kids.
The Mount Lemmon episode so special is that we did so many trials and so much went into it to have the right texture, to have the right chaos, to have the right variety of voices. We did table reads through all of these transcripts and stacks of all your files.
I knew all of that stuff was really important. There was tons of information in it. And I didn't want to just read it. Always envisioned it being reenacted.
Yeah.
So what did we do? Didn't we reach out to about a dozen people and we were like, we're going to do table reads this Saturday. I think we gave everybody like a 3-day notice. And the ones that said yes, we kind of matched them up with people we thought they would align with. And
we had some
it worked out.
Really amazing people that showed up. So big shout out to Sue-Ann and Steph and Kelly.
And a huge shout out to Jess and Lacey.
Yeah. And we had so many other people that kind of helped in the interim and just getting all the different voices, right, to play all these various characters. It worked out great and everyone was great.
I ended up reading Fran's 911 call. That's me. And you're the 911 operator. We kind of did that just as a
stand-in, right?
Like a spur of the moment. And Lacey and I were just kind of playing around at that point in time when I read Fran's part.
You were pretty frantic, Fran. No, that mixed with sound design and mixed with a little bit of ingenuity, like taking some of the voices and tweaking the pitch and correcting the timing. It worked out pretty great. And we worked with what we had and it worked out. So we had some guest voices from the Salty Horologist. They came on. Ken and Aaron were the salty detective and FBI guy and attorney and ultra salty
the forensic pathologist.
The ultra salty forensic pathologist. So Aaron was a little bitter when he was excited to finally get a part and then realized we killed him off within minutes of his read. But I think it was those details that made Mount Lemmon such a strong episode. And then having the other voices in our back pocket in case we couldn't, just to have a lot of content to tell the story in a great way. And then, of course, the Salems, Sharon's voice, which we could have never cast anyone like her. And then Jamie, who's so colorful, and having young Patty Wells played by Lacey, and then having actual Patty Wells come in on the end.
And we did the table reads before we found Patty Wells. Mm-hmm. So I almost wonder how that would have, it went perfectly. We had Lacey come read, not knowing, at that point in time, I was like, oh, we're not going to find Patty Wells. We'll just have Lacey read for her. And then, to shock everybody at the end of episode 1, we found her.
No, it was good to have the backups, right? To, like I said, have them in our back pocket and think, oh, this is how the story is going to go. But we had so many great happy accidents. And we had so many things just align that the timing was perfect. And literally finding Patty one week, finishing the episode the next week, and mastering, and having a call with Roger and Keith, and 2 days later release the episode. That's insane that we did that. But
yeah, a lot of the story started, the research and story started years and years ago, but a lot of it that we put in was almost happening in real time.
Yeah. I kind of knew that was going to happen from the beginning just because of the super tight deadlines. I kind of mentally prepared myself for that. And a lot of people in my life have seen me fall off. But it was a good payoff. We did have a lot of people not just show up for us, but show up on a tight squeeze, which was really nice.
Seems to be the theme of our production.
We're going to continue talking about this and sharing more content. We'll make some of these interviews available and some of these reads, and I think they're kind of fun MP3s to hear everything, bloopers and all. We all at one point had the nervous shakes. We all say goofy things. So it's been really neat. So we'll be making that stuff available on the website.
So this concludes our roundtable for episode 1, Mount Lemmon.
Hit us up with any other questions and comments. Thanks for listening.
Coming up next time.
So my mom and dad go out there and help her and get her set up in Arizona.
My dad had this brand new Pontiac hot rod, and it got stolen.
Shirley was there with their little girl, and he ends up beating the wife to death.
You want to talk into the mic real quick?
No.
And then I says, get some cigarettes.
My name is...
Tell me when you're ready.
Let's see how she talks on the night.
Let's get out your wiggles.
Okay. I'm ready.
I'm there.
It's really weird reading like them not talking right. I had to pronounce a word wrong like 3 lines ago, and I was like, "What the?"
I feel like I'm rambling, and I'm like,
Jacked up kind. It wasn't just the 4-wheel drive.
That's me.
Shit. I was gonna say this person talks kind of weird, not like a dispatcher.
No, you guys are doing great, and your pauses are perfect. And Ken's just being an asshole.
Are you a little nervous today?
yeah. Can I do that again?
Corain.
What the? It's that Coleraine.
I know. Sorry.
Redacted.
You got the tough part, and you are crushing it, though. Seriously.
I keep wanting to go fast. I'm trying to slow down.
I'll just put effects on that.
Okay.
Bye, Felicia.